It's hard to think of a better one-car-fits-all solution than Audi's A6 All-Road Quattro. It's presentable in any situation and is at home in the city as it is blasting across continents or slogging its way along dirt tracks. What's more, it'll do all this in any weather, in total comfort and with some style. That much we already knew about this model. This third generation version though improves the concept further with sleeker style, extra space, high-tech cleverness and greater efficiency from a mighty range of diesel engines. It is, in short, a smarter choice for those who need occasional off-road traction and all-weather capability. Back in the year 2000, as the world struggled with the millennium bug, German prestige brand Audi was struggling with a lack of foresight. Having virtually pioneered four-wheel drive and ordinary road cars with their clever Quattro system, they'd failed to foresee just how popular it would prove to be in big, chunky SUVs. As a result, by the turn of the century, while rivals like Mercedes and BMW racked up sales with M-classes and X5s, Ingolstadt was getting left behind. A stopgap was needed, a car like this one, the Audi A6 All-Road. The All-Road was an A6 Avant estate with clever air suspension for limited off-road ability and a little more styling attitude. A simple enough idea, you might think, except that at the time of this brilliantly executed model's launch, no one else had thought of it. Even so, fast forward a decade or so, and you might wonder why this model is still with us, two further generations having made the British market, the Mark II of 2006 and this Mark III model launched here in the spring of 2012. Audi has, after all, long since plugged the SUV-shaped gap in its lineup with Q3, Q5 and Q7 models. But almost any brand can sell you an SUV these days. Audi's A6 All-Road, in contrast, remains a largely unique proposition, copied in concept by more compact rivals, but never bettered in execution. While other SUV-style all-wheel drive estates, including Audi's own smaller A4 All-Road, offer little more than plastic body cladding and a marginally higher ride height, this one does the job properly, with an air suspension system able to raise the car high enough to give it real off-road ability. Such has always been the A6 All-Road's appeal, the car of choice for the sensible few who realise that they don't need a hulking great off-roader for the style of sensible SUV-ness. So what of the third generation version? Well, the recipe's been further refined with a more powerful yet more efficient range of 3-litre V6 engines and enough high technology to satisfy the most committed technophobe. So much has changed, yet the reasons why you might want one of these remain just the same. Come for a drive with me and I'll show you why. Air suspension, that's what an A6 All-Road is all about. That's what differentiates it from an ordinary Audi A6 Avant, and that's what sets it apart from its closest rival, Volvo's XC70, as well as more compact 4x4 station wagons with off-road pretensions. Volkswagen's Passat Alltrack, Skoda's Octavia Scout, and Subaru's Forester. All models that really are little more than jacked up estate cars. The air suspension can be controlled via the Audi Drive Select system, and you can select between 5 different on-road modes depending on your driving situation. There's dynamic for press-on driving and comfort for laid-back highway trips. But having played with these, most of the time you'll probably be content to leave things in the auto setting, which uses a series of sensors to attempt to gauge the ideal mode for any given condition, and can even automatically drop the car for more efficient high-speed cruising. Now, that'll be one of the ways that the dedicated efficiency setting will lower your global footprint and improve your fuel consumption, focusing as it does all the electronic systems of the car on making your progress more economic. You can even fiddle with an individual setting that uses the favoured parts of other modes to help you create your ideal setup. So it's possible to set this all-road up to be a soft high-riding thing, or a nicely hunkered down vehicle that, thanks to its torque vectoring system, really doesn't corner too badly and would manage even better if the freshly developed electromechanical steering that Audi has created for this generation A6 offered a bit more feedback, something lacking even in Drive Select's sportiest mode. Things are a bit better if you opt to pay more for a dynamic steering system that can adjust the steering ratio to the speed that you're going. And you can pay even more than that for a sport differential that enhances the standard Quattro four-wheel drive system and can vary the torque between the rear wheels to optimize grip through the corners and fire you from bend to bend. It's all there to emphasize the way that this model can provide a far more car-like driving experience than any SUV, which is something you can appreciate without expensive trips into the options list. Jump from a Discovery, a Mercedes M-Class, or even a BMW X5 into one of these, and you should find the handling and responses to be a revelation. The ride's better too, providing you don't hobble the car with the optional 20-inch alloy wheels that I've got fitted here. But none of that would matter very much if this A6 all-road was really not very good off-road. But fortunately, it is. Head off the tarmac and your fingers will head once again to the Drive Select system, where you can opt for the all-road mode, which will get the air suspension into action and raise the car by another 35 millimeters. If that's not enough, then a further lift function can raise it still further by another 10 millimeters for those occasions when you really need all the ground clearance you can get. The first generation version of this car could ride a lot higher than that and compete with fully fledged SUVs with 200 millimeters or more of ride height. Audi's more recent research, though, suggests that sort of capability to be unnecessary. There aren't many potential buyers of this car who'll seriously take it off-road, and those few that do tend to take the view that extreme terrain is not the place for it. Having said that, you'll be able to venture a surprisingly long way with this all-road into the wilderness before you find something that'll defeat it. Indeed, fit a set of winter tyres to one of these, and I reckon that most of the time you'd be pretty unstoppable. Alright, so there's no low-range transfer case of the kind that you get on a fully fledged SUV, but you do get a mechanically self-locking centre differential and a hill descent control system to walk you carefully down the steeper slopes. There's also an ESP stability control setup that's tuned for off-road use, and pretty generous approach and departure angles of 18.3 and 20.3 degrees respectively. Plus, you get a function on the MMI infotainment system that enables you to view the angles of pitch. What else? There's a useful wading depth of up to 300 millimeters, and the peace of mind of knowing that if you really do get yourself somewhere you really shouldn't be, there's a sturdy underbody guard so that you can power carefully away without lasting damage. Ah yes, power. Here's all the choice you could want, provided that it's a turbocharged 3-litre V6 of some kind. The A6 All-Road offers 4 such units, the least relevant of the quartet for UK buyers being the 310 PS 3-litre TFSI petrol variant that almost all British customers will elbow aside on their way to search for a diesel. Now, some will be tempted by the entry-level 3-litre TDI unit with 204 PS that manages rest to 60 in 7.2 seconds on the way to a top speed that's knocking on the door of 140 miles an hour. But most will want the next diesel variant up, the 245 PS 3-litre TDI that, thanks to a raise in torque from 450 to 580 Newton meters, lowers the rest to 60 time to just 6.6 seconds on the way to a top speed of 145 miles an hour. Now, like the lower powered diesel and the petrol variant, this transmits drive to the tarmac via a super smooth twin clutch 7-speed S-tronic auto gearbox. It's a great package, but if you can afford it, the car I'm driving here offers a better one. The 3-litre BI TDI is the A6 all-road flagship, a car that has an engine featuring 2 series connected turbochargers that together offer so much torque, 650 Newton meters of it from just 1,450 RPM, that Audi has had to fit a sturdier 8-speed automatic gearbox to cope. Now, with 313 PS on tap, 62 miles an hour is just 5.3 seconds away. But at almost any speed, just the merest touch on the throttle is enough to hurl nearly 2 tons of Vorsprung durch Technik towards the horizon, accompanied by a brilliant roar amplified by a sound actuator that some enthusiast at Ingolstadt has decided should be placed inside the exhaust. Choose one of these for your next ski trip, and there's not a lot that's going to be able to beat you to the slopes. Just a glance at this 3rd generation A6 all-road is enough to confirm that things have come a long way since the rather crude plastic body cladding that defined the looks of the 1st generation version. Like the Mark II model, this one's a more subtle evolution of the Lion, and a larger one too. To give you some idea of the scale of this thing, its extra 6mm of body length takes the total length from stem to stern to just under 5 meters, and that puts it fully 150mm longer than a huge Range Rover Sport, so you might want to double check that it'll actually fit in your garage. In terms of height as well as length, this all-road, after all, sits 60mm higher than a standard A6 Avant, but that of course isn't the only difference. The chrome effect front grille is probably the first thing you'll notice, along with the contrasting wheel arch extensions, which these days can be painted in body colour if you really want to disguise your SUV-ness. Stainless steel underbody guards overlap into revised front and rear bumpers, and there are aluminium roof rails. But the really important stuff lies under the skin, where aluminium has been used for up to 20% of the body weight, enabling this generation model to shed up to 70 kilograms over the weight of its predecessor. Lighter then, even if it is larger. Much of the 72mm of extra wheelbase has been used for the benefit of backseat passengers, who get an extra 7mm of rear headroom. It's still a place really primarily designed for 2 adults though, thanks to this huge central transmission tunnel and the way that the seat base has been shaped. 3 children though will probably be quite happy. Behind lies a spacious 565-litre boot that's really usable thanks to features like this side strap, the partitioning net, and 4 chromed tie-down eyes that slide along rails. There's also a useful underfloor compartment for muddier stuff. Now, if more space is needed, there's an optional ski hatch, or you can use these side cargo bay catches to flip forward the seat backs and release up to 1,680 litres of total fresh air. Options here include these telescopic bars to divide the load bay, a rubber and velour twin-sided mat to keep the cargo area clean, and a powered tailgate. But that's enough about the back. Let's go and look at the front. Here, where the front seats are now 20mm further apart, it's just like being in an A6 Avant, which is certainly no bad thing. The attention to detail is impeccable, from the leatherwork on the seats to the damping of the covers and the compartments. Even the piano black trim has been treated with a special UV resistant coating so that it doesn't fade in repeated bright sunlight. Most of the minor controls are gathered on or around the steering wheel, and it's all surprisingly easy to use given the complexity of this car's systems. The MMI infotainment system improves in its user friendliness with each generation and now features this pop-up screen which is bigger, clearer and allows for a sleeker dashboard profile than before. List pricing suggests that you'll probably be paying somewhere in the £45,000 to £50,000 bracket for your A6 All-Road, once you've allowed for a few well-chosen extras. There's a premium of around £1,500 to go from the entry-level 204 PS 3-litre TDI diesel to a point where you've a choice between either the 245 PS 3-litre TDI that almost all UK customers choose, or the minority interest 310 PS 3-litre TFSI petrol variant. You'll need a £50,000 budget though to choose the 313 PS BI TDI diesel that I've been driving here. As for rivals, well, I'm assuming that you're looking at this Audi in the first place because you don't want the kind of conventional 5-seat Mercedes M-Class or BMW X5 style SUV that would cost you about the same. You might be interested to know in passing though that Audi's 7-seat Q7, which shares most of this car's mechanicals, costs around £3,000 less model for model. There's only one really large estate with off-road ability that can directly rival this A6 All-Road, and even that car, Volvo's XC70, lacks the one thing that makes this Audi both special and of some use off the beaten track: its clever air suspension system. Still, if you can live without that and want to buy the Volvo, you can save yourself around £7,500 by opting for an XC70 D5 over a comparable A6 All-Road 204 PS 3-litre TDI. Volvo can't really supply anything to match Audi's pokier diesels, but it can give you a T6 petrol XC70 that can rival the A6 All-Road 3-litre TFSI, though here the pricing is much closer. The Audi's just £3,000 dearer. Bear in mind though that by choosing the Volvo, you're going to lose much of the saving that you'll make in lower resale values and higher running costs over your ownership period, and you'll be living with a car that's less comfortable on road and less capable off it. If, having considered all this, you decide that an A6 All-Road is exactly what you need, then at least choosing one is fairly straightforward, as there are no trim levels to consider, just the 3-litre V6 engine choice between either the 3-litre TFSI petrol unit, the two 3-litre V6 TDIs, or the flagship 3-litre BI TDI model that I've been driving here. Now, all are very well equipped. Coming complete with 18-inch alloy wheels, heated door mirrors, Audi's parking system plus parking sensors, roof rails, Milano leather seats, cruise control and auto-dimming rear view mirror, and dual zone climate control. There's also an MMI infotainment system via which you can control a 6-channel, 10-speaker, 180-watt stereo system with aux in and a separate subwoofer for a really clean bass response. Plus you get a full colour satellite navigation setup, accessible via a neat retractable screen. But of course you can go much further, and with this particular car I've done just that. So it gets these all LED headlamps with high beam assist that automatically dips them for you against oncoming traffic at night. There's the advanced key that gives you a push button start. The gorgeous full-length panoramic glass sunroof, window blinds and a 15-speaker Bang & Olufsen sound system. And there are a few practical touches too, like a ski hatch for longer items and a load area fixing kit. You don't have to go too far along these lines with a model like the flagship 3-litre BI TDI A6 All-Road that I've been driving here to end up with a £70,000 or £80,000 car. particularly if you start to specify some of the really high-tech stuff. Take the mobile phone preparation high option with Audi Connect. A mouthful to say and a mouthful to explain, so wide and varied are the features it includes. You're basically getting online services within your car using the standard 3G connection from your mobile phone that gives you Google Earth Mapping, Google Street View, and an Audi traffic information online function that uses your mobile phone signal to pinpoint traffic congestion and accident black spots in real time. There's also the option of Audi music streaming radio that means you can tap into internet radio stations around the globe, and it also creates a Wi-Fi hotspot within the car so that occupants can surf the internet or use email while you drive. Just make sure that you've got a data connection that can handle those sorts of transmission rates. You don't want to end up with a monster bill, especially if you're travelling overseas. At least basic levels of safety aren't optional, with 6 airbags and all the usual braking, traction and stability electronic aids there to help you avoid an accident, along with tyre pressure monitoring, ISOFIX child seat fastening, a bonnet designed to reduce pedestrian injuries, and anti-whiplash head restraints all included in the standard tally. But of course, you can go much further than that on the options list with features like the pre-sense safety system that initiates preventative measures if it thinks a collision is imminent. Then there's active cruise control. There's side assist to stop you dangerously pulling out to overtake another vehicle. Lane changing assist to stop dozy drivers from veering out of their lanes on the highway. And an active lighting system that can communicate with the satellite navigation to better illuminate the way ahead. Now, the biggest thing that sets this third generation A6 Allroad apart from its very capable predecessor is unquestionably its greater efficiency. That 70 kilogram across the board weight saving translates into a car that's significantly quicker, not only than the Mark II model, but also than a rival Volvo XC70. Yet at the same time, it's a car that still manages to be markedly more efficient, with fuel economy savings of up to 20%. Thanks to a standard start-stop system that cuts the engine when you don't need it, stuck at the lights or waiting in urban traffic jams. That means that the entry-level 204 PS 3-litre TDI diesel that many will be tempted by can manage 46.3 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and put out just 159 grams per kilometre of CO2. Figures not that much better than those recorded by the volume 245 PS 3-litre TDI model. That manages 44.8 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 165 grams per kilometre of CO2. Even this astonishingly quick 3-litre BI TDI manages 42.2 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 176 grams per kilometre of CO2. I'm not sure why you'd want to choose the 3-litre TFSI petrol variant, but if you did, the combined cycle figure for that is 31.7 miles to the gallon, and it puts out 206 grams per kilometre of CO2. Now, these kinds of figures give the car a vast operating range, which you can further extend by opting for a 75 rather than a 65-litre fuel tank. And those low CO2 figures contribute towards the lowest benefiting kind percentages in the class. But as with any Audi these days, the real sales strategy is based around whole life costs. Experts at Cap Monitor reckon that after the usual 3-year ownership span, an entry-level 204 PS A6 Allroad 3-litre TDI will be worth around 38% of what you paid for it. And that's 5% better than the kind of rival Volvo XC70 D5 that will chug out 20 grams per kilometre more of CO2 into the atmosphere and take you 5 fewer miles on every gallon. And versus the Volvo, there's a similar story with other A6 Allroad variants. Obviously, those residual values may start to look a bit less impressive once you've loaded a few grand's worth of options into your Allroad. So it's important to look at which features are going to give you the biggest bang for your buck come resale time. Insurance groupings range between 31E and 41E, and Audi offers 4 and 5 year warranty extensions for those looking at longer ownership terms. British roads are routinely rated as the very worst in Europe, made even nastier by an average of 184 days of rainfall every year, mostly throughout winters that climatologists tell us are set to get ever more unpredictable, with high likelihoods of snowfall. Now, high fuel prices and spiralling rates of taxation make that a difficult challenge to meet in an SUV. So an all-wheel drive estate car with an elevated ride height that's right for the rough, efficient to operate and beautiful to ride in ought to be an ideal choice for well-heeled British families. A6 Quattro buyers are apparently the most affluent of any of Audi's customers, so it makes sense perhaps that they're also among the cleverest, amongst a few buying a car with four-wheel drive for what they actually need it to do, rather than buying into vague perceptions of safety or social standing. There are other biggish, plush estate cars with limited off-road ability, of course, but without the clever air suspension system that really makes this car work in that respect, these can seem very pretentious and contrived. No, if you want the occasional benefits of better ground clearance and off-road traction without the usual clunky dynamic downsides, if you can do without the image, expense and bulk of a fully fledged SUV, and if in summary you want to make a sensible lifestyle statement, then I can't think of a better way to do it.